Hey ya folks, how's it going? My name is Lexi and I really love tabletop role-playing games. So much so that we sit down together once a week, every week, and review one here at the gaming table. If you like the sound of that, I highly encourage you to subscribe and keep watching today's video. Today I have the great privilege of reviewing a game that was sent to me. I always really appreciate having games sent to me. Not only does it give me a game to review and make a video about, but it can mean I get to find out about games that I might have not known about otherwise. If you have made a game and you would like to see it on the gaming table, you can reach out to me using the email address in my description box below. I will admit I'm not always the fastest at getting back to my emails, but I'll do my best to reach out to you as soon as I can. I'll also mention that I do have a bit of a delay in between receiving games and getting a review out. I'm just really lucky that lots of people want their games on the gaming table. I want to thank everyone who has donated to my channel through my Ko-Fi page. This was especially helpful for today's review. Sometimes when game creators reach out to me, they're not able to send me a physical copy of a game, they can only send a digital copy. I can take these digital copies and I get them printed and bound locally so I can make a review. All of the donations to my Ko-Fi page go towards this expense, so it's deeply appreciated. I put a short little thank you at the end of each video to thank everyone who's donated in the previous month. So if you want to be one of these wonderful folks, please follow the link in my description box to my Ko-Fi page. Today we are taking a look at Vergence, a game of dimensional conflict and family drama. When I was first looking through this game, I had a little bit of trouble pinning down what the setting was about. This game is set in a world where people can travel to different worlds, like hopping dimensions. To me, this is kind of an overwhelming number of possibilities for where your game could be set. The manual does provide some information about larger settlements in the world, so that might be a good place to start. There's the Caverns of Agorist, which is a giant cave system encompassing an entire world. There's the Maelstrom, a place of infinite stormy weather, and the Serpent, a land where everyone lives on the back of a giant moving serpent. Of course, if you wish to, you can create your own world to start your game off in. When characters in this world choose to travel between worlds, it's called world walking. There are places that exist between the larger settlements written about, but there's less information about them. The game manual also wants you to know that what is presented in the manual might not be entirely factual. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding or a misremembering of some information about the world, or someone could be deliberately misleading a game, or someone could be deliberately including false information. There was so much to choose from, I wasn't sure where a game should start. This is until I went a bit further into the game manual. Towards the back of the game manual, there are several suggested structures and styles of game to play using the system Vergence. These absolutely made the game a lot clearer to me, and I think I would start off with a group by choosing what kind of story you're going to play before choosing the setting. The options presented are Dark Conspiracy, an expedition, Game of Houses, Grand Tour, Masked Ball, Pursuit, Siege, and Succession. To start off a game of Vergence, it is recommended by the manual itself that you sit down and discuss which of these story styles is going to appeal to your group of players. Some of them might share similar themes or maybe have overlapping tones, but there's a lot of variety in the various themes, so you can have a lighter game or something that really heads towards the darker side of fantasy role-playing. This game is played with a version of the Forged in the Dark system. It's perhaps one of the more complex iterations of the Forged in the Dark system that I've seen. I think partially this is because of the multiple settings and multiple story styles you can play with this game. Forged in the Dark games, in my experience, tend to be about a single kind of style of story with options to sort of change elements, whereas this manual, you're getting a bunch of different potential stories, and the mechanics are, of course, going to want to adapt to that. I'll try keep this summary efficient. In Vergence, there are 4 modes of playing. Vergence has 4 modes of play. Free play, where you're kind of doing off-the-cuff role-playing. Operations, where I think a lot of the game's action is going to take place. Rest, where your characters reap the rewards of their operation and perhaps even recover. And scheming, where your characters need to be scheming. In these modes, there's different roles that you might need to make. Throughout the game, you're using D6s. For some of the roles, there are things like action roles, so trying to execute plans, resistance roles, where you try to avoid the consequences of your character's actions, fortune rolls to test your character's luck, and engagement rolls, which you tend to use when you are in the middle of an operation. When you roll your D6s, you're looking to see which of your die rolled the highest. The higher the result, the better. If you roll high, the character gets what they want without any consequences. If you don't like the look of your dice roll, your character can choose to take on stress to give them a bit of an in-game edge. For the player, it provides a mechanical benefit that they can use in the near future. The more stress your character takes on, though, the closer they are to being retired. Potentially forcibly. If you can, you hopefully are going to have your character work off that stress in their downtime. This will help them keep going on the adventure. A big part of Vergence is the scale of the world, and how, regardless of what's happening in the protagonist's story, the rest of the world keeps on moving. This is represented through the use of clocks. Clocks are a pretty common mechanic to the Forged in the Dark system, and it's a mechanic I really like. To represent larger things at work or perhaps off-screen action, a circle is drawn and then it's divided into different segments, kind of like a pie chart. As the story progresses, even outside of the camera view on the player characters, those parts of the clock are going to be filled in. Another big element of Forged in the Dark that's in this game is the use of various factions. I don't really have time to go over all of them, because there's factions that are for the entire setting, and then factions that are related to just specific places, and then if you wanted to, you could make up your own. There's honestly a lot you could use. Part of navigating these factions are favors. As the player characters do things and perhaps gain notoriety, they might endear themselves to some groups and piss other groups off. If you need the help of another faction, you might have to call in a favor and then owe them one next time. On the other side of things, if you happen to help out a faction, they might owe you in the future. I really like that Vergence presents a version of Forged in the Dark where there's lots of different potential story ideas and a bit of variation in how the game could be played. That's not something I see all the time with Forged in the Dark, and I think this is a refreshing option. It kind of feels like you're getting a couple of possibilities of different games with the one purchase. I don't think I've necessarily seen high political drama as an option for Forged in the Dark yet, which is interesting because Forged in the Dark is a system that I've definitely seen have intrigue. Perhaps I just need to encounter a few more games. I think perhaps how you feel about Forged in the Dark is going to be a big indicator of whether or not you're going to enjoy the game. It's such a big factor on how this game flows. I think the other big factor is what kind of story your group wants to play. If you're not sure and you want to try the game out or get a bit of a read, there is actually a demo version available on itch.io, so you could potentially dip your toes into Vergence before making a full purchase. I would suggest if you wanted to purchase a copy of this game, perhaps Drive-Thru RPG. I noticed it had the most options. I think the most expensive being a full color book for around $65 US with a PDF. Of course, there is also that demo version on itch.io if you wanted to check the game out. I do think it's a hefty enough manual that a physical copy is going to be really helpful to understand the game. So that is Vergence, a game of dimensional conflict and family drama. What do you think? Is there a type of story that you want to play in a high intrigue Forged in the Dark system? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. While you're there, I encourage you to like this video and perhaps even share it with a friend who might find it interesting. If you'd like to keep up with the gaming table, you can subscribe and turn on notifications. That way YouTube will tell you when I've next uploaded. I want to thank everyone who has donated to my Ko-Fi page for making today's episode possible. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to get this game printed in full colour and bound. If you would like to donate to the channel, you can do so using the link in my description box to my Ko-Fi page. I do deeply appreciate all of your help. I want to also thank Small Cool Games again for reaching out with a copy of Vergence for me to review. If you have made a game and you would like to see it on the gaming table, you can reach me using the email address in my description box in this video. I want to thank you all again for watching and discussing Vergence with me. I hope you're all well, and I look forward to seeing you next time at the gaming table. Bye!